Right now, the biggest sporting event in human history is about to begin. 104 matches, 48 teams, 16 cities, 3 countries, 39 days of football stretching from Mexico City to Vancouver. FIFA calls it the greatest World Cup ever staged, and they might be right. But here's the question nobody wants to answer before the first whistle blows. When you make something the biggest it has ever been, do you make it better or do you just make it bigger? To understand what's actually happening in 2026, you need to go back to the beginning. The first World Cup was held in 1930 in Uruguay. 13 teams, no qualifying rounds. The whole tournament lasted 18 days. Uruguay beat Argentina 4-2 in the final in front of 68,000 people. It was small, it was raw, and within a generation, it had become the most watched sporting event on earth. For the next 48 years, the World Cup settled into a format that felt almost sacred. 16 teams. A clean, brutal knockout structure. Qualify or go home. The gap between getting there and not getting there was so large that reaching the World Cup was itself considered an achievement. Then, in 1982, FIFA expanded to 24 teams. Critics said the quality would drop. They said weak teams would embarrass themselves on the biggest stage. They said it would ruin the tournament. Nobody talks about 1982 as a ruined tournament. In 1998, they expanded again, 32 teams, more groups, more matches, the same arguments, the same fears, the same result. The World Cup got bigger, the world watched more, and 4 years later, everyone had forgotten there was ever a debate. So, when FIFA announced in January 2017 that the 2026 tournament would expand to 48 teams, most people assumed the same thing would happen again. They might be wrong this time. Here is what is different about 2026. Every previous expansion added a handful of teams at the margins. 8 more in 1982, 8 more in 1998. Gradual, measured, defensible. 2026 adds 16 teams at once. 50% increase in a single step. That means 104 matches instead of 64. An entirely new round of 32 that didn't exist before. And a group stage format where 8 of the 12 third place teams advance to the knockout rounds, meaning you can finish third in your group and still progress. That last point matters more than it sounds. In every previous World Cup, finishing third in your group meant going home. That pressure, the knowledge that second place wasn't good enough, is what produced some of the greatest moments in the tournament's history. The desperate late goals, the tactical gambles, the matches where everything was on the line and both teams knew it. In 2026, a significant portion of group stage matches will be played by teams who already know they're probably safe, who have every incentive to play cautiously, to protect a draw, to avoid the red card that might cost them in the round of 32. Football expert Jonathan Wilson told AFP that the biggest problem with 2026 is not quality. It's the dilution of what he called the spectacle of jeopardy, the feeling that every game matters, that one mistake ends everything. That's what makes the World Cup different from every other football competition on the planet. And FIFA just significantly reduced it. Why did they do it? Honest answer is sitting in a financial report. FIFA projected that expanding to 48 teams would generate an additional $640 million in revenue above the previous format. Broadcast rights for the 2026 cycle are expected to reach $3.9 billion. Total FIFA revenue for the 2023 to 2026 period is projected at $13.1 billion. That is not a sporting decision. It is a financial one. FIFA president Gianni Infantino stood in front of reporters in 2017 and said the decision should not be financially driven. In the same breath, he cited the 20% rise in broadcast rights the expansion would generate. The vote to expand was unanimous. Every single member of FIFA's ruling council voted yes. The same council that just years before had been at the center of one of the largest corruption scandals in the history of organized sport. A scandal involving the secret auctioning of World Cup hosting rights to Russia and Qatar. The same people, the same institution, the same unanimous vote. This time for 50% more football. Now, here is where it gets complicated, because the argument for expansion is not nothing. Before 1982, the entire continent of Africa had 2 guaranteed World Cup spots. Asia had 1.5. Millions of football fans across vast regions of the planet had almost no realistic chance of ever seeing their national team on the world's biggest stage. 2026 expansion gives Africa 9 spots. Asia gets 8.5. For the first time in the tournament's history, teams from Uzbekistan, Jordan, Cape Verde, and Curacao will play in a World Cup. Those aren't weak teams who stumbled in through a back door. They qualified. They beat other teams in their confederations across years of competitive football. They earned it. And the argument that a Uruguayan farmer in 1950 or a Brazilian kid in 1970 watching 16 teams was somehow experiencing the real World Cup, while a Jordanian teenager watching 48 teams in 2026 is experiencing a lesser version, is worth examining carefully. Who decided 16 was the right number? Who decided 32 was perfect? The answer in both cases is the same organization now telling you 48 is ideal. FIFA has always decided how many teams play. The purity you're mourning was set by the same people you're angry at now. So, here's what the 2026 World Cup actually is. It is not the death of football's greatest tournament. History says every expansion felt like that, and none of them were. But it is also not what FIFA is selling. The biggest World Cup ever is not the same thing as the best World Cup ever. More matches does not mean more meaning. More teams does not mean more drama. What it means, what it has always meant, is more money. Distributed to FIFA, distributed to confederations, distributed in trickles to the national federations of countries whose fans now finally have something to believe in every 4 years. Whether that trade is worth making is a question nobody at FIFA is asking, because they already answered it unanimously in January 2017. The whistle blows at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, a stadium that has hosted 2 World Cup finals, a stadium that has seen Maradona and Pelé, and moments that stopped nations in their tracks. And this time, it hosts the opening match of a 48-team, 104-game, $13 billion tournament that the whole world will watch. You will watch it. And somewhere around the third group stage match between 2 teams you've barely heard of, playing for a draw that keeps both of them safely in contention for the round of 32, you'll ask yourself the question FIFA never answered. Is this still the same thing? The tournament is here? You'll find out.